let's switch gears now. I think we already hear our guest on the other end there. Is that Dr. Labos? I hear something in the background. Hi, Dr. Labos.
Hello, hello, hello.
Hi, how you doing?
Not too shabby, not too shabby.
It's great to have Dr. Chris Labos on with us this morning. Of course, he's a cardiologist. He's got a degree in epidemiology and a frequent contributor here on CJAD 800. Now, Dr. Labos, here's why we wanted to have you on this morning. Want to talk to you about some diseases that we're seeing more often in Quebec due to climate change. And I'll tell you this, Dr. Labos, yesterday I was in close to the border. I was close to the U.S. border, and I was out in the country. And we went We went for a walk through the woods and through not tall grass, but taller than usual grass. And at the end, we're just all freaked out about ticks. So I guess we got to talk about ticks and what we're seeing, tick-borne diseases, if that's increasing in Quebec. Well, tell us more on this.
Yeah, it is. Now, here's the thing. 10, 20 years ago, the winters were long enough and cold enough that the ticks that would carry Lyme disease and other illnesses wouldn't really survive in Quebec. And so Lyme disease and other things were just not something we saw very much of here. With the warming of the climate, especially in southern Quebec and southern Ontario, we are seeing more of it because now all of a sudden the ticks are able to survive the winter. So this is a problem. It is primarily worse in, places closest to the U.S. border. The minute you go, the further north you go, the less and less Lyme disease you see just because the ticks can't survive the winter. But globally, if you look at what's happening in this country and what's been happening over the past, couple of decades, the gradual warming of the climate means that diseases that we wouldn't normally see in this country are actually starting to manifest themselves in increasingly large numbers.
And the thing that, obviously the thing that freaks me out here is that, like Lyme disease, the stories I hear of people that get Lyme disease, it's never a good story, Dr. Labos. It's always a really difficult story about trying to battle, and some people feel they never recover. So, what should we be doing here? It's still warm. It's September 29th here, and we're going to be going up to 24 degrees. It's still warm here in Quebec. So, what kind of precautions should we be taking?
Well, the basic ones is the same sort of precautions that you would always take when you're out in the forest. It's basically wear long clothing, wear long pants, long sleeves to protect your skin. And normally people think about that in terms of not getting scratched or, getting mosquitoes. But the same also works for Lyme disease because the ticks have to latch onto your skin. So if your skin is covered up, the ticks can't actually get a purchase. So if you're wearing long pants and long socks and long sleeves and wearing bug spray, any DEET-based bug spray is going to do the trick. You are essentially protecting yourself as well as you can. The most important thing to do also is when you get home is to do a tick check, meaning, look at your skin, see if there's a tick on there, because if a tick latches onto you, but you're able to remove it within the first 24 hours of it latching onto your skin, that is actually not enough time for the tick to transmit the bacteria that causes Lyme disease. So with some very basic measures, Lyme disease is really preventable. And I will just utter one word of caution. Not all the stories that you hear, especially when they come from celebrities with regard to Lyme diseases, are necessarily scientifically accurate. Lyme disease is a very, very serious problem. And if you do get infected, it needs to be treated. But the vast majority of people, if they get, a proper course of antibiotics, will clear the infection from their system.
Okay, well, that is good to know because, my ankles were slightly exposed yesterday, and I've checked those ankles so many times, doctor. I don't see a tick. I don't see anything, but I'm still freaked out. Okay, let's talk about West Nile virus. So, by the way, how long has West Nile virus been in Quebec? This is a mosquito-borne disease. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
What's the concern with West Nile virus?
Well, the concern with West Nile virus is, again, it's not something that we see very much of. Initially described in Egypt, hence, it's why it's getting its name. It is a potentially fatal infection. And in this case, we don't have a real treatment for it because, you can't just give somebody antibiotics and have it clear from the system. It's not a bacterial infection. So West Nile virus does have the potential to be more serious. Thankfully, the number of cases is relatively low, but it just sort of highlights the point that control of the mosquito population, control of the tick population, control of all the bugs that are out there that can transmit and carry infections is becoming an increasingly important issue. And now we think of mosquitoes as being an inconvenience, right? Something that gives you a mosquito bite and that makes it annoying for you to sit outside. But cities, municipalities, the province, they have to start taking measures for controlling the mosquito population because, well, the days of seeing malaria in North America are maybe a thing of the past. There are a lot of other mosquito-borne illnesses that can be very, very significant, and we sort of ignore those issues at our peril.
Have we, because of our climate, because of our longer winters than most places, have we sort of not taken these types of diseases as seriously as we should?
Well, probably yes. Now, that being said, they weren't really issues for much of the past. I mean, here's the thing. The United States has a long history of this. The reason why the Congress in the U.S. breaks for the summer is because in the early days of the American Republic, there was just so much malaria in Washington, D.C. that it became unsupportable for people to live there. So the senators and the congressmen used to flee the Capitol to, save their own lives. And so when people talk about draining the swamp, there was actually a very practical public health reason why people used to do that before it came to mean corruption. They really did have to drain all the swampland in Washington, D.C. to get rid of the mosquito population. Now, they largely did that. And so, we can do these things. If we look at where mosquitoes breed and, control their population there, we can handle it, except that we have to actually do it. And so every spring, this becomes an important issue in terms of, spraying and making sure that we prevent the mosquitoes from hatching in the first place, because once they do, they're obviously much harder to control.
Dr. Labos, always love having you on the show. We got some medical advice and a history lesson there. So 2 for 2, Dr. Labos, today. Thanks so much.
I try. Take care.
All right, take care. That's Dr. Christopher Labos.
I'm Dylan Playfair.
And I'm Tyler Smith.
We're putting loneliness in the penalty box by talking to some of our favorite athletes about the importance of friendship.
This is Bromance.
Bromance is brought to you by Charm Diamond Centers, proudly Canadian-owned and operated. Charm has been part of your love stories and bromances for over 50 years.
And you can find Bromance on the iHeartRadio network or wherever you get your podcasts.